All right, welcome to the party, pals. GRC Mafia. I see Josh popping in. So I'm going to go run through this intro real quick. Welcome to the party, pal, Jeffrey. I'm going to run through the intro real quick. Today's just going to be a very, very basic intro to cloud and why we should even care about it. I'll also provide some other resources along with it too. So because one of the key things with this is going through and being like, hey, you could learn more over here. There's a lot that goes into cloud. There's people who specialize in just cloud security or just cloud GRC as well. So there's so much to go through. But we are going to keep it pretty introductory. GRC Mafia for the win. So to start off with everything here, so we're here with a shared mission to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future together. It's definitely a learning and growing environment. I'm going to try to keep up with chat as we go through here. If you would like to come up on stage, we definitely want to premise everything with an open stage format. If you want to come up, ask a question, socialize, whatever, just ask for that. We always drop those during our Friday AMAs and our Thursday meetings especially. Otherwise, you can also drop your questions in chat and so forth. You can also, the best place for your social media is going to be our Discord server. So if you join our Discord server, you can go into the live chat channel and you could drop links in there for your social media profiles. And that's actually going to relay that to all of the different platforms as well. Welcome to the party, pal, Zuyuki. Let's see. And then if you do happen to share something that you don't want to be public, just reach out to me on Discord or LinkedIn. You can also contact me at contact@studygrc.org. But yeah, definitely ask questions along the way, even if it doesn't pertain to exactly what we're talking about. Worst case scenario, we'll circle back around to that. Same thing with resources too. What are you guys currently working on? Like before we were talking about ISO last night even, or yesterday afternoon. The days go by so quickly. PBO hopping in. GRC Mafia. Yeah, and this is going to strongly relate with what PBO's been streaming lately as well. That's going to be one of the sources of information there. I dropped PBO's link, but then also you might want to check out B-Dubs as well. So B-Dubs has her blog, britwhite.io. She publishes an article related to like cybersecurity GRC every single Monday. Also, right now, you'll see the link in the description or in the chat there for the CISSP study group. So we got together last night, watched the live stream, hopped into VC and socialized for a little bit, talking a lot about those topics as well. And that's every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central. It's all a blur. Yeah, exactly, Josh. Yeah, exactly. 100%. And then also you can check out our website, which has the rest of the platforms that we stream to, along with our calendar for the most up-to-date information of what you can expect coming up. We have a lot of like awesome stuff booked out for next month. And then also our resources page, which I'm hoping to revamp here in the near future. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this here. So introduction to cloud. Why should we even care? That's pretty much what I should have titled this. So I am going to fly through this a little bit. There's not that many slides in the first place, but then there's a ton of resources and there's way more that we could expand on this as well. So understanding cloud computing. So computing services over the internet. So this is, a lot of people will reference the cloud as, oh, you're just renting somebody else's server at a different location. It kind of sort of is that way to an extent at a very fundamental level, but there's so much more complexity to that. And that's also where this gets roped into GRC. Some of the different examples here is rent versus owning it. And then there's also like renting a car. So you can go through and rent a vehicle. You don't own it, but you pay for that wear and tear on it. Access to it. So some of the different types here. So software as a service, so there are a couple more types beyond this, but these are going to be some of the most common you're going to come across. Software as a service, SaaS. Then there's also platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Let's see here. So like SaaS, for an example, is there's no way you haven't used that before. So software as a service, that's going to be like Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, Netflix is considered a software as a service. And so that's where you like make an account and so forth. Let's see. And then we also have like the infrastructure as a service. So that's where we start getting into you're renting that server space, you're renting that hardware itself. So you can go through and you could rent out virtual servers, you could rent out hardware itself, You could even rent out dedicated servers where you have the whole hardware in a rack as well. The prices definitely vary big time on that. And then also, so platform as a service, that's one of the things that like really got me when I was going through the Sec Plus. And so there's so many different tools that are out there that's like halfway. So platform as a service where you can deploy different things on. So that could be, I forget what it's called through Azure, where like static site or something along those lines. Cloudflare also has an example of that as well for Cloudflare pages, where you just upload your code and it runs inside of a platform itself, which would be platform as a service. Let me double check here. Welcome to the Party Pal, AB. CyberCycle. Everything's a blur. Everything. Which reminds me. I moved out of the coffee. Let's see. All right. So why organizations love the cloud? Why? Why do we care? Well, scalability. This is just some of the different benefits here. Scalability, cost efficiency, flexibility, shared responsibility. The shared responsibility is definitely something I wanted to dig into a little bit more because that's really important to understand. And it can be a little bit different from one provider to the next. Scalability, you could set up in almost any of these different platforms. You could go through and set it up to where it auto scales. So let's say you just have one little tiny machine running your website, but you could set up some type of auto scaling to where, we went from 100 to 5,000 or 10,000 requests, and it can auto scale to those requirements. There's still going to be limitations. There's configuration for that. It depends on what services you're using, of course, but you have that capability. It's also a lot easier to go through and, let's say you use a server for a couple of years and then now you grow out of that. Well, you don't have to, get rid of a $20,000 server sitting in your closet in your office. You just migrate that over or upgrade that particular service that you're utilizing. Cost efficiency as well, especially for the upfront cost of actual hardware, is very expensive when you're looking at the commercial end. And also, I kind of touched on that flexibility portion. There's a lot of different things that we also utilize on a daily basis. Just because it's flexible, we can access it from anywhere. We could scale it. We could, migrate. We can move from one to the other, or even use more than one cloud provider at the same time. And then the shared responsibility, that is very important, which I put on the next slide here. So I'm going to drop both of these links here, actually. So this first link I'm going to drop is for the Amazon. So AWS shared responsibility model. If you're going to do anything with AWS, I strongly, strongly recommend to carefully read this article here, understand it, ask questions and so forth, and really understand what it actually entails. So I have the image up here on the right-hand side, and what this is showcasing is what does the customer, your company, responsible for in regards to their services, and then also what is AWS responsible for? And I keep saying Amazon, but it's Amazon Web Services, still Amazon. CyberCycle, it's a cloudy day in GRC Mafia land. How's everything going, Zuyuki? GRC Mafia. So there's that shared responsibility model. Azure also has one as well. You could see some of the different providers on the left-hand side, and I wanted to take a moment to review that as well. I've had multiple people ask about the actual market share of some of these providers. We've talked about it multiple times. PBO covers this as well. So you could see here, I believe this was, so Q4 of 2024, and this was published back in February. So this is pretty recent that this was conducted. And so you could see 30% for AWS, 21% for Azure, and then you could see some of these other cloud service providers as well. And that's also another terminology that you'll also come across is cloud service provider, CSP. And so you could take a look at some of these different services here. One of the things I really like about both of the top ones there. So I know for a fact with AWS and Azure, you could sign up for free and you get like limited access. So like with AWS, you get like 1 year of like free tier, which is actually pretty reasonable, especially to get in there and play around with it. Although Azure, Microsoft Learn has a ton of resources. I believe I'm pretty sure everything on Microsoft Learn is actually freely available. You do have to pay for the actual exams if you choose to do that route. But I don't think I've come across any paid content on Microsoft Learn itself. So the information is certainly out there. Also, when you're especially looking at Azure, which is the second most popular one, which it seems like that's going to slowly climb up in my opinion. PBO, I believe, shares the similar thought process with that too, just because Azure is owned by Microsoft and a lot of businesses rely on Microsoft as well. But you also have multi-cloud, so hybrid, which I probably should have covered in this. I don't believe I actually included that in here, but definitely take that into consideration. You can also see here that statistic. So cloud infrastructure service revenues for Q4 was $91 billion. So plus it's up 22% year over year or year to year. So what to watch for? $91 billion market. A lot of businesses use it. I believe I put it on the next slide. So I thought I put it in here as well. So like over 80% of businesses are already actively using the cloud. So, and that number is expected to just climb even higher, especially because of the cost effectiveness, the scalability. And one of the huge benefits is this is also why I wanted to throw out PBO. So I'm going to drop PBO's link again, is because the last couple of videos PBO has done, he's done a lot of other content around AWS. He holds multiple certifications for that. But the last couple of videos, especially, he's gone a little bit more on a deep dive regarding GRC and AWS and also some of the different tools. So the video, not last night, but last week, we actually went through and I was asking PBO questions about like what tools should we even worry about in AWS. And that's one of the benefits is that, you know, we have security, vendor lock-in, data privacy, downtime. There's dozens of other different issues that we need to be concerned about in the cloud. However, it can also make it a little bit easier because these providers also provide tools for that compliance, for that risk management as well. So love-hate relationship, but at least they have that in there as well. So like Microsoft has like a dozen different services. So does AWS, for an example. PBO's talked about guard duty and a few other ones. There's also like AWS config. And so like PBO was talking about how AWS config, you can go in there and you can actually apply FedRAMP or other different standards to it as well. And then also like Microsoft has like Pure View and all kinds of identity access management. It's all pretty similar for the same purposes, but they of course have their different names and they are different. Which I think is one of the big struggles is like trying to balance that too, because one of the biggest common questions, let me go back to this one. One of the big common questions I think a lot of us come across is, okay, so AWS and Azure are the big ones. All right, so what do I learn? That's kind of hard to say because at least for me, it's kind of difficult to balance between the two. And I haven't met that many people who are really good in both and two or more. So it's kind of a balancing act. I personally prefer AWS, but like one of the things that I've recommended before is just learn one of them. Just start digging into some of the materials. You could do some of the intro materials for several of them. And then after you secure a position, or if your company starts using one of these services, then you could start like really digging deep into that. Is typically what I've told people. I think that makes some pretty good common sense method there. And then I also put this here, what is GRC? So we have the governance, the risk management, the compliance, and it's the exact same thing we have to deal with in the cloud. nothing really changes. We still need to do each and every single part. We still have the compliance, regulations, policies, procedures, all kinds of different stuff. What are our objectives and what are we doing in the cloud anyways? The risk management, identifying those, containment, all kinds of different stuff that we need to do. Also, there's even roles out there for IT cloud audit. So it can be a specialized role as well. Although that's probably going to be a larger organization. Here it is. So 85% use cloud by 2025 was one of the Gartner reports, or one of their predictions, I should say. And the last time I checked it was over 80% of companies currently use some form of cloud service in one way or another. And that number is just climbing. And also, like, PBO also did a really good video about data governance. So data residency, that's one of the big issues in the cloud, especially, is since you're renting that out, you need to understand with a lot of these different businesses where that data is physically being stored. So if you're like a US company, maybe you shouldn't be storing your data in Russia, for an example. It's going to definitely depend on the business. You got to understand what your regulations are and what your guys' policies are, of course. But again, that is something that is built in. They do have options for that to restrict that or deploy that only in certain regions. Now we move into like the data safety and privacy. There's all kinds of different stuff that coincides with this as well. I'm trying to keep this a little bit, a pretty high level here. But so like identity access management, for an example, you have like single sign-on that's also up in the cloud as well. There's a lot of data and personally identifiable information that's stored there. So definitely big concerns, especially when you don't have physical control and access over that. But one of the biggest benefits, like PBO talks about all the time, is how these cloud service providers they have all of these different attestations, certifications, all of this different stuff for ISO and NIST and FedRAMP and all of these different things as well. So some of the different things to consider here, understanding the shared responsibility, verifying the certifications. So Amazon, Azure, they publish their certifications and what they have available as well. Of course, there's very particular steps that you have to follow in order to actually have those implemented. So just because you download their ISO certification doesn't mean you could just willingly hand that out, ethically at least. You actually have to follow those steps and make sure that your particular deployment is in compliance with that. Exact same thing as we do everywhere else. Regular assessments, staff training, making sure that, people are aware of the cloud security. That's a whole thing on its own as well. A lot of those fundamentals apply, but each cloud service provider is a little bit different too. Bam. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. So Cam over here, currently studying for the Sec Plus and straight slumming in the ISO with that free course. But after that, I'm planning on taking Azure Fundamentals, course AZ 900 on Microsoft Learn. Yeah, that's awesome. And also, just the other day, I had posted a link for exampro.co, did a AZ 900 course through Free Code Camp on YouTube as well, which it's like a 7-hour course or something along those lines. Very good resource. Trying to see if I didn't drop this other link. So I'll drop this link too. So I dropped the shared responsibility model, but I'll drop this one as well. I dropped this in Discord the other day as well. But so that is to the market share for some of these cloud service providers, the big boys. And then also, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there too. I've mentioned Cyber before. They go through and they do sponsor our giveaway, which is ending on Thursday, by the way. So they do sponsor that. It 100% goes towards the giveaway. They cover that 100%. And I wanted to throw them out there just because they're hands-on labs. So you could sign up for free. no strings attached at all. That's one of the reasons why I love this company. And they have a bunch of different free content, hands-on labs that actually deploy in AWS. This is a really good place to start on the AWS side. And they do have some courses as well. Some of those are free. Let me pull that open. So you can see right here, they have their AWS Certified Cloud Specialty. So that's actually one of the higher end certifications from AWS. And that's completely free on here. That may not be the best starting point. Maybe get some of the foundations first and then break into that, but still really awesome information, completely free. Identity Access Management Privilege Escalation Labs, a beginner's guide for CloudTrail. And one of the best things through this is not only are some of these, you can see some of these are paid, or you can go through and get the subscription to unlock everything on the site. But I highly recommend knock out a lot of these free ones first. Introduction to Application Security is actually like my favorite one from here, to be honest. They have a really cool wireless deauthentication as well, where you actually go through and you build a physical wireless deauth device. I'm trying to remember where mine's at, but I did go through that as well, and that's completely free. You do have to order some parts if you do want to physically build it. But it is a really great step-by-step walkthrough as well. And then, of course, we also have Azure's Microsoft Learn, which I think it's awesome that they provide that. Yeah, PBO mentions that the AWS security specialty is hard. Yeah, so Cyber did go through and build an entire course for that and provides it completely free for no cost. But yeah, it is not a beginner's, it's not the place to start. Oh, bam, there you go. Cam's using them with the practice exams for the 701. How's everybody doing? We made it to Wednesday. So we're slowly closing in on halfway mark. And then, did I drop this one? Yeah, I want to drop this one too. So Microsoft Learn, they provide tons of training for no cost. One of the things I also like about it is they also have built-in labs too. So you could sign up for an account, you get some free credits, and then while you go through the courses, a lot of those include a step-by-step of actually deploying an application or doing this or that, and you can actually follow a walkthrough, which I think is really neat. Then you can get that hands-on aspect of it. And then I'm going to pull up PBOs over here. So PBO, you guys are definitely familiar with. Not only did he just recently do these other ones, so you could see here a week ago he went through and did cloud compliance. That's the one that I was talking about. That we kind of dug, I would say, a little bit deeper on like what services in AWS we should be worried about for GRC. I'm going to drop the direct link for that one. But then also last night, he also went through Security Hub, which is another big one as well. Now, that's not it though, because if you just search AWS on here, PBO's got a lot of content. PBO likes to talk a lot. So you could see right here, AWS fundamentals for basic cloud understanding. So it looks like he has a walkthrough here. Does PBO have that on a playlist though? Let's see. Oh, look at that. He did put it in a playlist. Bam. GRC Mafia. Yeah, and see, not a single one of them is even 2 hours in length. And that was 3 years ago. Bam, PVO. See, you can do it. Yeah, and so even though this was 3 years ago, a lot of this technology is still out there. It's still similar services and so forth. One of the things I would like to see is, like this one's Introduction to Storage and Databases. You can actually make a free AWS account, and you could probably walk through a lot of this material as you go as well. Do you remember making that, PBO? And then if you guys have any questions or otherwise, I did drop a lot of resources in the chat there. I'll stick around for a moment. If anybody wants to come up, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link. PBO says that he needs to upgrade the AWS fundamentals. I guess we know what course PBO is working on after the 853 one. So that makes it pretty obvious. CyberCycle mentions that they also suggest with your home lab, burst to cloud resources, stretch your AD, set up something federated, etc. Do things that make sense for large scale enterprises. Yep. Well, and that's like, that's probably one of the things that I would recommend is like go through and work with like the identity access management. That seems like a really common place to go. So many businesses use that in the cloud. For SSO and all kinds of other things as well. I think that's a really good one, no matter which platform you go with to practice with off the bat. But there's also, I think one of the problems with cloud is that especially with no prior experience, it becomes extremely overwhelming because these services have hundreds of different options. And that's also where just trying to start with the fundamentals, work through those and slowly build yourself up rather than just jumping straight into, oh, let's just start randomly going through each one of the services. AB says, thank you for making the playlist. I want to learn more and more from your content. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Zuyuki is definitely a person to go to regarding IAM. So we are a half hour in. We do try to keep these under an hour, but we don't have to go to an hour. Yeah, and I got to find the link to that. Bam. Welcome to the party, pal AMK. Yeah, and CyberCycle also mentions just starting pretty simple at first and then adding complexity. Yeah, and so PBO says that he needs to go through and update that a little bit, but still, I'm sure there's still really good information. The industry does move quickly and so forth, but also like those services, a lot of those services have been around for a very long time. So, and if anybody ever has questions regarding cloud and so forth, like there's plenty of people out there more than willing to help. You just got to ask. So, bam, GRC Mafia. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this open real quick. So if you guys weren't already aware, while we have a moment here, if you go to our website, you can go ahead and click on this envelope icon, and that's going to pull open this form. So if you would like to, this Thursday, we're going through our job readiness and group resume review session. So that's the last Thursday of every single month we do that. And so tomorrow we'll be going through and covering some different resumes that have been submitted. Now, if you do want to submit your resume, you can go through and you could just you could just attach your redacted resume. Just make sure it's redacted. We don't want to share anybody's identifiable information on a live stream. So take your name out, take your phone number out. If you're worried or, you think that the employers could track back to you or otherwise, you can also take those out as well. We'll go through those in order as they were submitted. So we're trying to make this process as streamlined as possible. So you don't even have to fill in this other information up here. It's all optional. We're not trying to collect too much information either. And then also tomorrow at 6 p.m. that giveaway is going out. Let's see, we have 31 participants right now for the HIPAA Cal virtual conference, which is April 10th and 11th. Oh, look at that. PVO is just waiting in the background.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. So you're going to redo your AWS after your 53?
I probably will. When I looked at it, it's probably still valid, but because, like you said, those were just basic overview of those services. I don't think much has changed. They added a lot of advanced features, but once again, I did the basics. So, but I'll definitely check that out. I forgot I put it in the playlist. It's so old.
I was surprised. Yeah. You haven't really been that great at organizing the content.
No, I need to work on
but you got that one at least.
Yeah, I need to work on that. My organization. I'm trying to at least tag it. So if you search my YouTube, it'll come up if you're looking for something specific. So
Thanks for popping in, AB Showtime. Now, are you going to continue working through AWS for your Tuesdays? Is that what you're going to work on primarily?
I think so. Yep, I think so.
Bam.
I think, yeah. I mean, I got enough NIST out there and everything kind of derivative of NIST. Yeah. So
we need a hands-on walkthrough of how to, deploy a EC2 or something with FedRAMP.
I could do that. I'm halfway done because I got the AWS Security Hub and the Fed. I got the EC2 out there. That's where all those findings came from. I got the EC2 shut down. So
so we're going to need a walkthrough of like deploying CISO Assistant in AWS with FedRAMP compliance. So that way, our evidence doesn't get breached.
We got to work with
protect
CISO.
it.
Yeah, I always worry, which would probably be good for CISO is, I'm sure something we would cut on from the CIS hardening or the STIG hardening probably would break it. So we would have to figure out, what we need to cut off to make sure it works and what's the mitigating control if we have to cut something off. All right. And that's the big deal from doing an assessment. So
thanks for popping in, Cybercycle.
Yep.
GRC Mafia. Yeah, I definitely wanted to really focus on that shared responsibility model because I feel like that's a really good starting point to understand why we should care. Because I've also talked to people who are like, oh, it's in the cloud. We don't have to worry about it. We just click a button. We're good.
Yeah, small companies say that all the time, and I have to tell them that's incorrect. So a lot of people miss, and I see a lot of senior auditors miss that too, which I think is interesting. So, but no, that is, and two, it depends on if you're doing SaaS, PaaS, or IaaS, right? Depending that responsibility matrix change from who's responsible for what. But AWS does a great job of listing those out.
Starting to sound like a sales rep.
I thought about being I forgot what they call those engineers that go out with the sales engineers.
What is that, T6 or something?
No, I'd probably be a little small, probably 5. Because that's
probably still like 150K or something.
Shit, if you're AWS, that's 200 easy. Because I think you get part of the sale too. That's why I thought about doing it.
Yeah, if you guys are ever curious, definitely look up the pay scale through AWS. They have some really incredible positions. Although you could also look up the Amazon Loop interview.
Yeah. The Amazon Loop is big.
So in your experience, what's the most difficult aspect of cloud to teach folks, especially regarding security principles? I've found it's just having folks check their configs against best practices.
Oh yeah, that's who. But two, it depends on a person, Josh. If the person coming over with IT skills, I usually work with people that were DBAs or programmers, so they understand the basics. They just got to transfer that to the cloud, right? So I was a DBA for 3 or 4 years in Oracle, so those security principles really are the same in the cloud. They just configure them differently, right? So if you got an on-prem database and you're spinning up Amazon Aurora, once again, they take care of patching and you got to take care of configuring it, right? So the cool thing, a lot of times it's a little easier because, like Josh said, is AWS takes on a lot of that for you depending on what service you do. A lot of times if you go on the cloud, you're trying to make sure Amazon handles, especially database, I don't have to worry about patching, hardware. I just put my credit card in and just spin up a bigger a bigger VM or a bigger memory or whatever I need for that particular service. Right?
Yeah. Well, and even the configuration would go back to like the actual credentials. But then also, like, I've heard about people incorrectly storing their encryption keys as well in the cloud is another thing that I've heard.
The big one, people put their keys and put them in GitHub because they're asking for help. So their AWS keys are in GitHub. But yeah, the thing is just, and you brought up it kind of time and time again, AWS usually has a service. You just got to figure out, and you got to figure out if you want to pay for it. Because AWS has security manager where you can put your passwords and stuff, but it's kind of pricey. So then you can put them in system manager and parameters, but then you got to take care of all the rotation yourself, but it's a lot cheaper. But once again, figuring out what's the right service for your problem you have. And AWS usually has a service for our problems.
That's like one of the biggest confusing parts for me, though, is that like AWS and Azure, they have multiple services that do very similar things. So,
but that's the cool thing. But it's kind of the same thing when we were talking about compliances, right? You got to figure out the right compliance and understanding those nuances. And a lot of times you as GRC, you don't get to pick those nuances. The infrastructure team or the CTOs are going to pick those nuances. I got to tell them if it's compliant to HIPAA or HITRUST or NIST or whatever we're doing, right? So
I kind of feel like GRC should probably be involved with that to some extent, though, too, because I'm sure that there may be easier ways to deploy something. But
you got to be careful. I told you I almost got in a couple fist fights with CTOs. That's their baby, man. When you start making recommendations, they think you personally attacking them. All right. So, but I understand now. If people ask me to architect stuff, I help them. But usually when I come in, they already figure that out. They got their products, they got their services. They're usually coming in because they have some federal requirement or they got deemed when they got an assessment for something. But you can, but most GRC people are not going to have that level of architecture experience, though.
Yeah. Another thing to mention, too, is like the cloud is also being utilized for that CMMC as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's easier to deploy your workstation and that documentation in the cloud than it is on site.
Yeah, because shout out to Oja, shout out to my man CPM when you're interviewing him, Derek. Everybody's going to the cloud because it's easier for you to get there. Because like we talked about, you can do the workspace, you can do the thin client, you can already spin up different architecture. And we looked at them. I did that. AWS has compliance from their part, from the shared responsibility. HIPAA, BAA, CMC, they got all that stuff. You just tell them, pick this service, they'll tell you if it's compliance, and you spin it up. But you're responsible for configuring it. What does that mean? Picking out the keys, picking out your encryption, figuring out how you're going to talk from your app server to your database. Now, your database and your app server could be CMC, but if you communicate in clear text, then you broke your CMMC, right? So,
bam.
Space Taco won't in on that HIPAA cow.
Yeah. So HIPAA cow.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Kim. Got it. Go ahead. Right under.
Oh, yeah. No. You're good. So HIPAAcow.org. It's an absolute great resource. So they have all kinds of templates, and they also have free resources to learn HIPAA, including like assessment worksheet and everything else too. And so that's actually our monthly giveaway this month. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time, the bot will automatically draw somebody from that giveaway. And that is for their virtual conference. So once a year they go through, they have a virtual conference online. It's April 10th and 11th. So I believe it's Thursday and Friday. And it's from like 8 a.m. Central until like noon Central roughly. Definitely take a look at that. But so we do have that as the giveaway. So you just click participate in the giveaways channel on our Discord server. And I will be attending that. Like, I don't even want to go into healthcare, but more knowledge, the better.
Oh, yeah. Shut up. Well, most people, it's usually the other way around, Kim got it, is they usually pissing me off where I want to punch them because they run into the CTO. I really had somebody tell me to my face next to the CIO, he has no idea what he's doing. I'm looking at him like, I'm about to punch you, dude. So, but once again, we worked on our craft. I had a great rapport with the CIO at the time, but he really said that into my face. So, but once again, it took me a while. People think you're attacking their baby. So usually I come through as an advisor to people from a GRC perspective. And two is, like we talked about, AWS config is going to tell me if it's NIST compliant or CMMC compliant. So I physically don't have to argue with you, right? I'm gonna have a finding. That's
PBO Thunder Punch. This was sent over by Flakinator.
Shout out to Flakinator. But yeah, but once again, that makes two is usually when you come in, their team is already built, so the team has a set of skills. So a lot of times, if you asking them to change, they don't have that skill set inside their team. So they want to run with a certain technology stack that they're used to too.
And yes, I'm positive that Haircut Fish would have a field day with HIPAA. So, let's see here. So Josh says, getting my head around all of the non-human identity issues, having such said
it right.
Oh, what's that next part? Is it cut off? Oh, infrastructure is always a challenge to stay on top of. I thought it was cut off.
No. I think we talked about this too. I actually came up on my stream on side of YouTube is Zero Trust Networks helps you with that. They got a lot of bit of that when you start subnetting, starting to split your workstation from your identity plus your MFA kind of starts helping you with pieces of that. And once again, you're at the top of the pyramid when you start talking about non-human identity. We trying to get regular identity down, but we still forcing people to get MFA in there. So, but now you're at the top of the pyramid when you talk about that. But yeah, when I touched on a little bit of that from the zero trust perspective.
Yeah, and I dropped those links, and I'll drop them again here in a moment. PBO has all kinds of different content out there for it. Yeah, and I'll pull this open as well. Let me see here. So HIPAA is a real thing. It is a great resource if you want to learn more about HIPAA. But in particular, I'm talking, if you go underneath meetings and events, they have the 2025 Virtual Spring Conference. And that's what I was referring to as well. Underneath their resources, they have like HIPAA 101, they have their documents, education, all of this different stuff. They're a nonprofit out of Wisconsin, I believe. So, and like what I'm excited about is one of these, on day one, they're going to be doing a risk assessment for HIPAA tabletop exercise for 2 hours on day one. Also, another really good one is they're going to talk about some of the AI, and this is going to have like a healthcare aspect to it, mindset. And then also on this day two, they're going to have this entire panel for state of privacy and security. It's a 2-part section for day two. So, and some really awesome speakers that they have coming up as well.
Is that the lawyer day? Scroll. Is that lawyer day? State of privacy. All those are lawyers.
Oh yeah.
I just noticed that because I used to work with a ton of lawyers, so I'm used to seeing JD. I'm like, wow, that's kind of heavy hit. Well, when you get into HIPAA, as soon as you get out of hardening, most of that is legal stuff.
Yep, and this is for the state of privacy and security. It's a 2-part multi-panel. Like this is, like I'm legitimately excited to hear it. And they don't have anything on here. I don't believe it's recorded. I don't think the recordings are provided after the fact. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks.
They don't have anything on here that mentions that.
That's gonna be interesting with the JD. Sometimes that communication can be tough, but
yeah. So if you look at like their speakers pages and so forth, like they have certifications and so forth on them too. So yeah.
Yes, Suki. We'll see you. Let me know if you need anything from me from AWS, or if you want something special, just let me know. You're part of the GRC Mafia family.
Yeah, thanks for popping in, Zuyuki. Yeah, we'll probably bring this to an end here in a moment.
The crazy thing is, when I used to freelance, I've done a ton of HIPAA work, which is crazy.
Oh my gosh. PBO gets a PBO wall of throat punch shame.
Yeah. I've got a little list there. I've got into it with a lot of people. I'm gonna interview one of my mentors. He used to go tell me to beat up people because I'm a nice guy. So he used to get me to go tell me not to be nice to people. So
we're gonna have to go through and change our background here to a PBO wall of shame.
Nah, you get there as y'all get in the industry. Some people are nice, and some people try you, especially as an auditor or internal assessor. They
The
try to
way that you
bully you.
say that is very intimidating.
They try to bully you, but I'm about that life. I'm about that life. So you got to set
And
tone.
I'm just going to type up the PBO disclaimer ticker real quick.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah, facts, facts. We need to keep that on speed dial. Never see the uppercut come. But yeah, but that could be more of a boomer thing, especially being at DOD, ex-military. Those guys, they can get a little rough, man. So they get a little spicy, a little fiery sometimes. But so that's kind of the thing I was kind of brought up, brought up in. So um, mm, mm, mm.
Bam, there we go. PBO is not a spokesperson for Study GRC. Everything Professor Blackops says is his own words and not that of anybody else's.
Facts. Facts.
Please I got to add, please refer your comments and concerns to
me.
Yeah.
And I have a turning on speed dial, so we can do this. I'm good.
They'll never see the uppercut coming. Oh gosh. Yeah, thanks for following up PBO. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring this to an end. We busted through that slide deck pretty quickly, talked about the shared responsibility model, and then also like why we should even care. Like so many businesses are already in the cloud and it's just increasing. I think it was earlier. So last night when we were in VC for the CISSP study group that BDubs is running, which I'm going to drop again, we had briefly mentioned about how about thin clients and how, in 10, 15 years or whatever else, that's going to be like the norm. I could see that becoming like a regular thing to where we're not having operating systems on our devices as much.
Because if you go to little kids, most of those are Google Chrome. That's basically a thin client. So I think we're testing it on the babies. So I think it's slowly getting there. I think people like me, I'm always scared I'm gonna get disconnected for some reason. But I
censored.
Yeah. So, but no, I think that's going to be the future. Especially, we looked at the price of that small cube from AWS Workspace. All the work I currently do, I can definitely do it on that. So I wouldn't think it would be anymore. So I was looking for your AWS. Oh, there's the AWS link you put in there. Oh, let me find that.
Bam, added. Great recommendation, Josh.
Listen at your own risk. That's funny. Once again, it's great stream. I'm trying to find your AWS where you had those percentages. Scroll back on there. Trying to find that.
Oh yeah, I can drop that again too. I had it somewhere in here.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. I didn't see it.
Jeffrey said that they learned a lot today. Bam, GRC Mafia. Yeah, and it goes for everybody too. Like none of us are gonna learn it all. It's definitely constant learning every day, progress. That's what it comes down to. B-Dubs is talking about how she's going to move everything to the cloud because she's about to fight with her computer.
Facts. Shut up with Josh. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say she's going to pull a PBO.
I'm getting close. Yeah, we talked about that, Josh ERC. We talked about data sovereignty, where it lives. We did a privacy stream. I think was that me and Dwight did one. But yeah, so definitely, especially GDPR. And two is a lot of times in practice, do you want to separate your European customers from your United States customers? Just because you want to have all that GDPR baggage and you want to keep that to a very small subnet or something. So that's something we kind of talk about a lot.
Yeah, you did do a video on data residency. I'm trying to find it.
I've done it. Yeah, I got to do a better job. I think I did a couple of them. I don't think I put data sovereignty or residency in the search terms for the SEO.
Yeah, because I feel like that's another there was that question earlier, like what other concerns are out there that's common other than misconfigurations. That could be considered a misconfiguration as well, but like you still need to have your data flow on like where is this data going and how is it being handled. Because there's definitely companies out there that are storing data where they're not supposed to.
Yeah, the cool thing, if you're using AWS, they got a thing called SCP, which are control planes. You could put them in OUs so they can save data in certain locations to force people to save data where you want them to save it.
That sounds like another lab that you can do on Tuesdays.
The SCP, that's top of the line. I don't think I've ever done an SCP in real life. So once again, if you do AWS organizations, part of that it gives you best practices on how to configure your usernames. Then in those orgs, you could put SCPs, which are control policies to say no data can be saved. You can't get your S2 bucket. You can't spin up a database or anything in this region because it's Europe.
Bam.
That's part of the top governance inside of AWS, how to get there. That's the 400 level cast in AWS.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in, Josh.
You
have a
too,
great
man.
rest of your day.
Me too.
We're at the halfway point. The Payne mentions missed the first half. We'll have to rewatch once this ends. Yeah, we blew through some of the different very basics for cloud and why it's so important for GRC to understand what the cloud is. Because if anything, honestly, I kind of feel like there's even more risk in the cloud. So there's a lot more moving pieces. There can be.
Yeah, yes, and I mean we had a conversation. You're correct, but you get so many tools, and the expertise from AWS is so much better from them configuring it than you trying to configure it in your own data center. But I mean that's just my opinion. And to be honest, I just really changed over the last 4 years or 5 years.
Too bad 8-Bit's not out there because he'd be up here fighting for self-hosting.
Well, I mean, if you got something small, but if you're trying to do 40 EC2s and 40 app servers and 5 databases and trying to, lock it down.
What, you don't miss the good old days, PBO?
Oh my God.
Flashbacks.
Yeah, it was just crazy trying to handle all that. Make sure they're patched, making sure, you're on top of all your CVEs, where once again, that shared responsibility. Now you got CVEs because if you're patching and managing your own OS or just managing your ASP or your Python, you still got to patch that yourself. But it cuts a lot of that stuff in like 60 or 70%. So that's why I kind of changed over the years, Chris. It's like, especially if you're doing an enterprise, that's a monster, man. That's a monster.
Well, and also, like you said, with all the tools that are available and so forth, I think that's also why so many businesses are moving to the cloud now. Over 80% was the last figure that I saw are already in the cloud in one way or another. What I'd like to see is a statistic on how much of their business is in the cloud. But yeah,
I would say probably a lot. And like you said, the other part of that too which is your developers and your top of the tier people, they always want to download stuff, test it, spin it up. That's a lot easier to manage in the cloud than if you're trying to do it on-prem. Because getting disk space on-prem could be brutal. Every time we try to get disk space at DoD, you have to almost sell your kid to get this because it's just hard to manage your own SAN. AWS, you just spin it up, hook it up to your SAN, your EF, or your ECB backup. This to your Windows or your Linux box. Trying to do that on-prem could be brutal. So and you can let your developers, you can put them in the sandbox and they can spin up anything they want to test, and you could put a limit on how big the database is, how big EC2, so then they can develop and iterate more quickly instead of waiting on you trying to build stuff. Because then, like you said, that's how you get shadow IT, because you can't keep up with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like Cam says, is it's got to be like 70 or 80% of their services in the cloud. Well, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are 100% in the cloud. So, yeah, like it's critical to business operations at this point. So,
Yeah, and everybody I know who has a data center is going to the cloud or almost to the cloud or heading that way. I know a couple big companies are going to the cloud. They're not all the way there, but they're definitely heading there.
bam.
Because there's some things, if you got a chatty app, man, AWS can nickel and dime you to death. We had a vendor, I'm not gonna say
Leaky S3.
Yeah, they were they were logging everything from damn near a mouse click, but Amazon was charging them from every click. So they were gonna have to rework their app a little bit because of that.
Yeah, I talked to somebody who ended up getting like a $15,000 bill because they left their S3 open and they got like millions of requests or something like that to their S3, and it cost them like $15,000.
99% of the time, AWS will let you off the hook if you reach out to them. And two is AWS budget. Create you a budget. Shoot yourself an email. Anything over $100, PBO getting an email. So if somebody's hacking me, I'm gonna be on it. And two, every day, because I'm kind of nervous. A good friend of mine, oh God, what's his YouTube name? Somebody hacked his site and he didn't know he got a bill for 30
before the billions.
No, it wasn't before the billions. He's only came on years ago, but what was his name? But yeah, he got a bill for 30 grand. So he told me he wasn't paying. I think
he's like, I'm done.
So yeah, somebody kind of hacked him like that. So first thing I do is every day is go look at AWS. Oh God, what is it? Cloud budget, and there was a cloud cost. So it tells you your cost, then it projects your cost out for the month.
Yeah, and that's a really good shout out is, especially if you're going to be screwing around in the cloud, definitely enable those billing alerts at the very start. Enable MFA and then go enable your billing alerts. I think mine I have set at like $15 or something. So
mine's 100. So but two is go to your cloud cost, because if you get a good hacker, they'll cut off your budget and you won't even know. So, out there mining, out there mining Bitcoin in your AWS.
Oh, God.
So so I would just keep track. But once again, AWS is usually pretty fair about it too. And the other thing too is look up spot instances, meaning AWS
and reserved, right?
No, spot instances. AWS has so many EC2s in a region or in a availability zone, which is a cloud. So they say spot instance, since nobody wants it and it's slow, we'll let you get it for 90% off. Now, if somebody needs it and we short, you got 15 minutes, we're gonna take it and send it to somebody else. But most of your labs, you up and down. So check out that spot instance. You get to save 80 to 90%.
And welcome to the party, pal, Lamed. So no worries about popping in later. Otherwise, that's one of the best things about going through and recording it all. So, yeah, awesome for you to still pop in. Yeah. We are bringing this to an end here, but still, GRC Mafia.
Yeah, that's the one. Both of those, the pain. You got servers, and some people use Office 365. That's why I think Microsoft's going to pass AWS. Everybody's using Office 365, where you get PowerPoint, Word, Excel. And the other part of that is you get Teams and all that Office good stuff. So that's one
software as a service.
Yep. So that's one reason I think Azure is going to pass AWS in the future, just because of that.
So like I think it was 21% Azure and then 30% AWS as of Q4 of 24. But yeah, I think with how many businesses are using Microsoft, I definitely see that taking market share eventually. Like you've talked about before, is like Azure was very late to the market.
Everybody was. They thought, because my favorite thing is Oracle. Oracle called Amazon a toy when they first started. He said nobody would risk their security in the cloud. He called them a toy. but Oracle they were about as big as Microsoft in the 2000s. So everybody thought it was a toy in the game. He definitely called them a toy.
I kind of feel like I know Oracle's still a massive company, but I still kind of feel like they're not as big as they once were.
No, they're not. Because the first thing is what got them over the hump is how I really made my first money. they had the first enterprise database that wasn't on a mainframe. So, and he got that running, and everything really that you were doing in the government, anything big was done on an Oracle database. But Oracle, was kind of outdated. The thing they did, like Microsoft, was their database made so much money. Oracle bought like 400 companies in the last 5 years. So a lot of people don't realize that. But no, they're not. Their database has shrunk, but they bought so much other stuff where they're from a size, they're the same size, but they bought construction software. And so yeah, but they bought really like 400 or 500 companies. So, but
jeez,
compared to AWS and Azure, they're tiny.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was surprised Google got 11%. Was on there. They shot up because I think when I did mine, they had like 3 or 4. They like 11 now. So
yeah, personally, I kind of feel like Google Cloud is kind of catering to the small business, kind of like Google Workspace. That's where I think they're finding their niche, and I feel like they're catering to the smaller businesses, like under 500.
Facts, 100%.
So
they're dominating that. And they're actually making a little headway into the federal space, which I didn't think they were going to do. Once again, I interviewed a guy that I super respect from Google, and we talked about that. Super smart guy in there. He actually came from Oracle. So and then he went to Google and make a crap load of money. When they were trying to get they were hiring a bunch of federal people to bid on federal stuff because there was a $9 billion CSP cloud service provider, and they won part of that bid. So, which I was surprised. And Oracle was the fourth person on there, so I thought that was kind of unique. So, but once again, let's shut it on down and get some lunch. I appreciate you for having me up.
Oh, come on, running away so quick, PBO.
I don't know. I felt like I was holding you up.
Oh, no. You're fine. I got all day, PBO. Come on. Are there Google Cloud specific courses? Yes. So I will drop the link for that real fast. But yes, there is Google Cloud courses. Now, some of those are paid and some of them are free. But they do have quite a few things on there for no cost as well. So I just dropped that link in there, Cam. And then also the last thing I wanted to go ahead and throw out is what I have up on the screen here is PBO's channel. Definitely go subscribe to that. PBO just committed to AWS labs and so forth on Tuesdays, at least on a regular basis. And these last 2 videos are extremely relevant to what we were just talking about. So cloud compliance, and then also this AWS security hub that he did last night as well. So bam. GRC Mafia. You guys have a great rest of your week. I'll catch you guys tomorrow night for our Thursday primary meeting. If you haven't already, definitely hop into the Discord server, go over to the giveaways channel, and just click the button to participate in that giveaway. I'll catch you guys in the Discord server throughout the day. You guys have a good one.